KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Let's go with another Wrestling is Real podcast, episode 579 here at WrestlingIsReal.com. So, as I look at it, look at my calendar, next week will be the 8th anniversary of this program. Yep, 8 years I've been doing it. We'll be starting year 9, roughly next week. Be the week of, because it'll be December 18th will be the official start of yours truly doing this podcast. So remember the first day I did it, and I had Mark 811, and I forget who else I had with me. I think I had Xbox One Chuck join me on that show too. But again, it's been a while since I've had anybody on that was part of the mix that was, basically as a co-host. I haven't had a co-host in a long time. And tonight, as I record, I do not plan to have any notes in front of me. And I normally have a couple of things to kind of put together before I start the program. But tonight, glasses are off. I actually wear glasses, if you didn't know. I'm sitting relaxed in my chair with a full stream of consciousness right now as we look at what's going on with AEW. Because AEW right now they're separating, there is no noise, it's full signal. They are definitely giving out the vibe through a lot of different things they're doing right now at the end of the year. I feel like AEW does see a moment of weakness right now for WWE because, again, WWE, they didn't decide to go ahead and move forward yet because of the corporate infrastructure of their company, because of their advertisers, because of their, the people they have that work for them. They're not willing to go and take the risk of going ahead and trying to put out programming where they have an audience. Again, because if they're going to do it, they have to do it big. They just can't have a small audience in there. Like NXT, they can get away with that more or less and put them in pods. Again, it's a very, also is because the wrestlers, I think, in a way, they're very much conscious of being woke. And I think there's a kind of a mindset that's in there that might be going on, just very socially conscious, if you will. WWE at this point, they've been very, it's not policing. I think they've just been very controlled in a lot of different things where, again, liability is an issue for them and just a lot of things they don't want to go ahead and, put their stars at risk. And obviously because of the contracts they have, a lot of the things that they might be going on, they're being very careful. They've been very careful. They weren't trying to be careful at the beginning of the year. Prior to the pandemic, they were still going to try to go ahead with WrestleMania. But ever since the backlash for that, because of the scare of the pandemic, of the COVID-19, everybody just said, well, you know what? They're just going to stick to this format right now, the Thunderdome. First of all, it's a performance center. I mean, that's all the credit in the world for WWE to continue to go ahead and keep doing what they're doing. I have to give them credit there. At least they're doing that for the sake of the audience. There's not much that can be done. I mean, they want to pull bigger crowds, but again, I think Vince probably playing the smarter route. No trips to Saudi Arabia, no house shows, nothing like that yet. Again, there's nothing that's going to be going on like that yet. I think they just planned it out. And I think also it's just they've had the support of their broadcast partners. They have had to go and work on other things. I mean, the thing is, they're not doing so bad in terms, I guess, the fact that they don't have the kind of resources that are being put out. There's a lot of money that's being put for travel, logistics, and, setting up production every week. So just doing this, it's like these Las Vegas style, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, these windows of time where they're here. It's like an exhibition. There's the thing where they are playing at a particular venue for a while without a crowd, so there's really not much else they can do. Now they're going to move themselves because of the NBA Orlando Magic. The NBA's Orlando Magic. They're about to go move back to the Amway Center, so they're going to relocate the Thunderdome now to a bigger venue in Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, just west in Tampa. So it's a bigger venue. The Thunderdome can be even a bigger looking kind of thing. I don't even know what it'll look like. But again, I guess they won't have a crowd yet. And, what it sounds like is, well, what it looks like anyway, residency. That was the word I'm looking for. That's what it was. So while they have the residency at Tropicana Field for the time being, and this is again until March, because then when the Tampa Bay Rays will be coming back to their stadium to go ahead and play either spring training or to have other things going on, or just to get their baseball season started. They're going to just go what they're going to do. And then maybe they'll figure out they could stay in Tampa for a while and then eventually make the move to WrestleMania and go to Raymond James and maybe be able to put some kind of a crowd together, socially distanced. That's what they're going to probably try to do. But again, for WWE, they're hurting badly without an audience. They're hurting badly without the live crowd, without that interaction with the global community, because you can only get so much attachment from, what they do. Because remember, WWE is a traveling company. I mean, they are the ones that go everywhere. Remember, they're normally accustomed to world tours, 300 dates a year, sometimes doing shows multiple. So for them, that kind of, tour that they have, not having that has hurt them in 2020. And so they become, they really didn't make changes to make themselves. I mean, they did make this change with the Thunderdome to be much more of a TV product. And they just said, well, listen, we're going to have to make the best of a bad situation. And they have. But that's been their issue. And it's also come at a time where, they really don't have the audience feedback that they would normally get that would really help to kind of keep in line some of the storylines and some of the characters they bring on television. Because we'll see, like, if they had certain stars, like, say some of the cruiserweights came in, like the Apollo Crews or the Aleister Blacks or not saying that Aleister Black is a cruiserweight, but just some of these stars from NXT making their way up, they would probably get a chance to get a little bit of a look at. Would Keith Lee or Matt Riddle really get much of a buzz? I don't know. Like, really, when you really think about it, who would be getting a pop right now in WWE? I don't know. Well, for months now, that's what AEW has had. They did take the risk, but again, they worked out a good deal, have the outdoor amphitheater so they can go ahead and have, good logistics to go ahead and have a social distance crowd with masks on to go ahead and continue to do their show. And again, they did it for a little while where they had just the wrestlers, but again, they still had some kind of a crowd feel to give. And now you're definitely getting that. And just tonight's Dynamite tells you a lot, where the kind of response they're getting when they have Sting, when they have the Inner Circle, when they have, Kenny Omega coming out in some very major segments on this program. And it's not hotshot booking. It's just that they have a lot of things that are being built up. I mean, they're working with Willie F. Now, I'm curious as to where Sting comes into the picture when it comes to AEW. I guess he's going to be put for a match. But again, I think he's going to get the Undertaker schedule. Maybe like a once or twice a year kind of deal. He's 61 years old. Like, how much can he really do that'll be constant? I mean, he's going to have to do the Undertaker style matches where you go cinematic, I would imagine. I don't think you could put him in the ring and really have him stand out. I don't think it would work unless he's got the wherewithal to do it. That's got to be, they're going to have to figure out how to best do that. But again, if a Cody Rhodes is the person he gets to face at one point, if he's out there helping out, assisting, getting Darby Allin in the type of aura that Sting's getting right now, because they made the attachment, the correlation, if you will, that's good. I don't know where Shaq comes into the mix, if he really makes much of a difference. But again, it's a TNT relationship. So you got that. And then you got the alliance of Kenny Omega somehow bridging the gap between AEW and Impact Wrestling, of all places. And, Impact Wrestling I watched last night. And I see a lot of people actually went ahead and tuned in to Impact Wrestling because they were wanting to find out what Kenny Omega was going to say. And Don Callis did a lot of the talking, but Kenny Omega was in there. Funny commercial for AEW to promote their show Dynamite, right? Impact Wrestling pops a rating, gets a good social response. Good for them. Some people got their eyeballs on the show. And again, Impact Wrestling, for what it's worth, it wasn't like they put together like an all-star show, right? besides the fact that Kenny Omega coming on to be on the show and the way they positioned it, they gave a good 10 minutes at the end, teasing it throughout the night, and then having that commercial with Tony Schiavone and Tony Khan, get it? That was really pretty much it. Again, they basically just went ahead and just did other matches like they would normally do. I mean, it is what it is. But they did bridge some other matches in between. But again, they got a roster that's pretty deep, and they're trying to do a few things. Again, they reestablished Kenny. Kenny. That's the Kenny is the kendo stick, right? So Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan restarting that feud. That's good. And then Moose and Willie Mack, and they got a few things that are interesting here. They got the women's tag team tournament. Okay, that's all good. Interesting stuff in there. But they didn't really try to hotshot book the show. Again, they just wanted to go and give, here's Impact Wrestling. These are our stars. We're not going to put all the WWE, cast-offs that are being repositioned and bring them back on. They brought back Brian Myers tonight to go and do, or that night on Tuesday night to go ahead and put them out there. And then everything else was just a pretty pedestrian, run-of-the-mill Impact Wrestling show. And for some people, it was kind of half and half. But it wasn't like it was boring. It wasn't like it was overly amazing. They might not have gotten the Johnny Bravo, Larry D, Tommy Dreamer stuff because of that storyline kind of winding up for a while now. So there's that. But for what it's worth, and that was the Post-Bound for Glory stuff, right? So Kenny Omega offers a little bit of a presence. Don Callis now brought in, but we don't know what more that's going to mean for Kenny Omega coming on to Impact Wrestling in any kind of way, shape, or form. And it was kind of mentioned on Dynamite tonight. And by the way, good stuff from Don Callis and Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega now, with the Don Callis attachment, has become, he is the star. And he is the champ. And it feels like a big deal that Kenny Omega's champ right now. And what they're doing is very good. Listen, Kenny Omega, WWE wanted him. They offered. Remember, didn't they offer a contract for him? And he didn't. No, he went to AEW. They tried to go and take him before he went with the Elite to start up AEW. They thought about it, but Omega thought differently. And the story they explain where Impact Wrestling and AEW's attachment and Don Callis and his relationship with Kenny Omega was a very interesting story. So it makes all the sense. They put some real history behind it, and they made it a good story. Okay, so we understand Don Callis' his relationship, the invisible hand. It's pretty funny. So I like that. And again, it's not like they're doing any kind of an invasion angle. It's just they're kind of just doing a little relationship. And Don Callis obviously has the relationship here. He's got it in good with the AEW people, and however this worked, it's good. It's just enough to kind of get a little bit of an edge. Now, I don't think we're getting an invasion angle, but I think what we're going to get at some point is a talent exchange. That would be great. And listen, it's the same way for a little while when TNA had, Global Force, when Jeff Jarrett came in, he brought his Global Force stars in, right? We had that bit. And it's already been known that in previous times that, the likes of MLW have, worked together where MJF and Brian Pillman and other people had worked in the other organization coming over here. And, Pentagon was also working for a while in MLW, and he worked was he in MLW? No, he wasn't there. It was, I forget who else. Regardless, AEW is willing to work relationships. They have somewhat of a pseudo working relationship with NWA, but again, it's just with certain stars. It's not like they're taking the whole roster, which is good. It's selective. It's taking certain stars that can really get the rub. So Thunder Rosa brought on to AEW while she's still attached to NWA is fantastic. Like they still get to work their other shows. That's good stuff. And it's helping everybody. Again, so the AEW rub, but again, they do enough where some of these stars are in AEW and they still mean so much of a big deal, right? AEW is creating alliances. They're playing along. They are not in the corporate structure. The way they're set up is good. But now what they're doing, in my perspective, unless I've been talking about where I've been reading the recent book by Guy Evans, his name is, he wrote the book on Nitro, one of the newer books on Nitro that's very comprehensive. So right now I'm at the point where Vince Russo's been brought on, and he's working his way, doing his Crash TV, and it's towards the end of 99 into 2000. That's where I'm at right now. That's the lead at the Starcade. And I'll tell you, the approach of AEW throughout, and I haven't taken a whole lot of time just to devote a show to AEW and really talk about the direction they've gone. But I mean, really, this is the time where you're seeing the turning point. The turning point is now. The next level for them, I could almost bet tonight they probably pulled 1 million viewers. Compared to what NXT was giving tonight, I mean, NXT didn't plan much, right? We knew Finn Balor was going to come out and make an appearance. So Finn Balor and Karrion Kross, that's going to now be a thing. Pete Dunne also being involved in the mix. Got it. And, they did some other things following up from War Games. And by the way, if you want to hear about NXT, I did a War Games post show on Sunday night, and you can go and catch that right now at wrestlingisreal.com. So if you want to go and catch that, I did do that. And it was really just me kind of giving the full spectrum of what NXT is and what it serves and what kind of purpose it serves right now, because it's not. It's not serving at the behest of the main roster what it needs to be. And it's still being used because NXT was supposed to be the stopgap to keep AEW from accelerating to a better ratings point and to be able to go ahead and thrive. But again, at every point, right? At every pass, AEW has been able to succeed beyond. And at this point, I think it's a pretty bold thing to say, but it's still, I'm not afraid to say that AEW now, I don't see them, losing this Wednesday Night War any further. At this point, they have now put on the afterburners. They're now not just pulling ahead of NXT in terms of the head-to-head competition, they're pulling away. They've been pulling ahead throughout the last 6 months. They're now pulling away. And so NXT, what it badly needs right now, it's not like the show's bad. But again, there's a loss of direction. And I kind of figured this was going to happen with them because NXT could not stay the developmental, project it was over on WWE Network like it was. It wasn't going to stay like that. Because when it went to USA, it had to be you had to have really solid players. You could not have green wrestlers on TV, and they don't. They don't have any green wrestlers at all. Really, very rare. I mean, tonight, Isaiah Swerve Scott and Jake Atlas, that's about as, relatively young stars. But again, Swerve's been around for a long time, and Jake Atlas obviously has some kind of a pedigree because they did a good match tonight. I caught a little bit of that. But I'll tell you, you got to have good stars in there. And obviously, listen, when you have the Undisputed Era, 4 solid, thoroughbreds that could be wrestling and succeeding anywhere else. And that's the whole point. Let me tell you, Ring of Honor, I ain't got a chance to take a look, but I got to follow up on their programming this weekend. I want to catch up on what they've been doing with their show. And they've been doing the Pure Rules Championship, and they've been doing other things because now they're leading up to their pay-per-view, which I was finally reading up about, which is not this weekend, but next weekend is Final Battle, which is normally the final pay-per-view of the year. So that is going on, and it's going to be live, and I will watch that show and comment about it because it'll be nice to go and watch. So Final Battle coming up Friday, December 18th. I think that's what it is, right? Or Saturday? No, it would be December 18th on a Friday. So there you go. Looking forward to that. For what it's worth, Ring of Honor could really use all those Undisputed Era stars back in their organization. Like, really, remember, Ring of Honor losing all those guys at once. You still got Damian Priest, who was also over there, right? There's a lot of guys that Ring of Honor lost. What really happened was NXT, in order to counteract AEW, they really did secure so many contracts for so many Ring of Honor stars. Like, remember that. Keith Lee was also part of that mix, and he was brought over. And again, they just went ahead and just picked off indie talent left and right. Apollo Crews, Aleister Black, picking them off. Ricochet, picking them off. And good on them. Again, this company's been offering them money, but are they getting any real return on their investments? Like, listen, they are supplying NXT with a good show on Wednesday nights. Sure. That's absolutely what's being done. But again, is that what WWE wants to do? Again, this is one of their broadcast partners. To go and give a show that really doesn't pull the kind of ratings that it should right now for a live show, by the way, an hour-long show. At the moment, they're not winning the war. And for USA Network, if they were able to go ahead and put that show over, and again, they made it 2 hours. Did it really hurt the show altogether? Making it a 2-hour show, making it a show on Wednesday nights up against the competition, because that was the behest of WWE, they wanted to go ahead and, take out AEW beforehand. I never liked that decision. I'm pretty sure I said it on the air. So here we are now, and they're struggling. Could NXT pull maybe 700,000 viewers tonight? Maybe. We might get an increase in viewership anyway, because I think what AEW did now, more than anything else, this is something that's got to be said here. Now, we know that when AEW goes ahead and brings on talent from the past, veterans, grizzled veterans, they really don't focus on the WCW end of those veterans. Not so much. Like, when you think about it, they have some stars that are older and that have been around, like, Kip Sop, and you see him out there, Billy Gunn coming out like he normally is, and he's out with his son, Austin. Oh, so there's an attachment there. You're seeing DDP once in a while. He's kind of been attached off and on. But again, when you look at some of the stars they have and some of the veterans that they use and how they utilize them, it does attach you in terms of being the older fans. Because let me tell you something. Watching AEW Dynamite tonight, and again getting the feel of Sting talking to Tony Schiavone, and then Cody Rhodes bringing like the new generation. But again, Son of Dusty talking to Sting, Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross at ringside also calling the announcing. Let me just tell you something. There's something about a little feel of nitro in the air. It kind of had a little nitro feel to it tonight. Seeing him out there. And by the way, the way they present Sting is fantastic. The snow is a great touch. I like the whole aura of how they bring that character out. And Sting doesn't feel scripted. It felt very natural, off the cuff. I think I liked all that. I love the impromptu Tony Schiavone saying, "It's Sting." I love that. And it's true. It's like people were having fun out there. And you can just tell it's a loose atmosphere. But again, Sting still has an aura of a big star. Like, this is the all-star. That's why I brought all-stars in the mix. Shaq is an all-star basketball player. Sting is an all-star wrestler. Like, that guy is one of the best of all time. One of the best gimmicks. Listen, I think the Undertaker gimmick has been fantastic, but I've always loved the Crow Sting. I always thought the Crow Sting was very cool. I like the change they made to him. And again, it was a good evolving of the character. Going from the Surfer, California, going to this was a very cool idea. And again, this is like the Bischoffs of the world came up with the idea. I love it. It was wonderful. But Sting coming out, it's attaching himself into a wrestling storyline already. A little bit of animosity with him and Cody Rhodes, and Cody having a chip on his shoulder. I love that. And it's not going to be immediate. I don't know when they're going to pull anything off with Sting right away, but the attachment to Darby Allin, and again, understanding why he's been sitting up there in the rafters. They don't say the rafters, but he's pretty much in the rafters. Darby Allin is an interesting character. I like the character. I like it a lot. So you got that going for you. And again, just so many young stars intertwined with the veterans. Have some of them all taken off? Not yet. But again, I don't think they're giving up on people. The Murder Hawk Lance Archer has not taken off like it should. It's not like the guy can't wrestle. And it's not like he doesn't have a great manager, Jake Roberts. Come on, right? Everybody's got their own factions, got their own groups. Taz got his own group right now. He's got a nice little faction going. You got Powerhouse Hobbs and Brian Cage and Absolute Ricky Starks. I love that. and they're setting things up right now. The little faction, the clique between Kip Sabian and Miro, and his attacking on Orange Cassidy, and Orange Cassidy just being the target of all these different people. Again, intertwining storylines. I love that too. We're developing deluxe, multi-tiered storylines. I like that too. I mean, even at the end of the match tonight for the Dynamite and seeing MJF winning the match shittily because he did, and Orange Cassidy getting beat up by Miro because we saw that during the Battle Royal, that whole storyline commences. It continues. And, Eddie Kingston in the same vein. He's got his issues with the Murder Hawk, and he's got his issues with, a number of people. I love it. I like where they're going with all this. It's not, nobody's standing out above the others. There's just the standout stars right now that you oh my God, gotta watch. Jericho is still a big deal. Cody is presented as a big deal. Omega is now there too. And Young Bucks also. You could just see the Elite have been splitting up, they're dividing and conquering what they're doing. They continue to introduce new stars. They continue to have new blood, fresh new matches all the time. Tonight was a very good, concise episode of Dynamite. It was not boring. And again, they promoted the hell out of it. And I got to tell you, too, the social media push from all their stars, plug away. Here's videos. Here's graphics. Put this out there. Put this out there. Put this out there. Their people, and a lot of the people that associate with AEW, plus sponsors, they did a hell of a job. Fight TV as well. They did a hell of a job getting the buzz out there about Dynamite. And Dynamite was trending around the world on Twitter. They're getting the word out there. They're getting people to talk about it. So there's obviously a strategic move right now to take that next step up, to get that 1 million person viewership number on a consistent basis. They got to 900,000 last week. And again, when you bring Sting out there unannounced, and it was a surprise, yes. And then you promote all this stuff going on, the Inner Circle, ultimatum, which was really well done. Okay. Kenny Omega speaking, which was really well done. Sting talking to Tony Schiavone, very well done, right? The Shaq stuff, I liked it. There was a lot of good stuff to like in that tonight. Are we getting that kind of excitement, that kind of momentum, that kind of fresh, new look on Raw? No. SmackDown, we're getting some positive momentum. The ball is rolling on that show. WWE needs to realize they are rebuilding right now. They need to take this time as a rebuilding effort. They should have figured that out back in March. They should have figured that out way before. Because again, they do not have stars they can fall back on. They don't have stars they can pick off on other organizations. I guess the only thing I can think about now, which they're not going to be able to do, is if WWE thinks they can just keep going the way they do, go along to get along the same kind of, trajectory they've always gone without making major changes. I mean, the only thing they can think of doing next is trying to buy out AEW stars and, spending on bigger contracts just to get them over. Not to try to acquire to bring them over. They need their, that's kind of the thing that happened before. Okay. When WWF in the Monday Night Wars, you have to remember the things that actually took off. Was it so much the storylines in the Attitude Era? Yeah, but honestly, I never really, in my opinion, never really made a difference about the Attitude Era in terms of what got me about the storylines and the gratuitous sex and the violence and all that. Listen, being, ECW and trying to take the ECW and going up a little bit farther, got it. But for me, there was just a number of big stars that, that's the ones that I was actually caring about. Mid-card, not really. I wasn't paying attention much to the mid-card and what they were doing. Not at all. I mean, sometimes the women, the diva stuff, But for the most part, if I knew we were going to hit the first 20 minutes was going to be Austin or Rock and McMahon coming out there, or Mankind or Mick Foley or Triple H or Shawn Michaels or Undertaker, you give me all that. And then you got a lot of good stars that you would have had, if Benoit was around, or Eddie Guerrero or Chris Jericho, right? Or Kurt Angle. I mean, there's just what a packed roster, right? there were just a lot of stars I would watch. But again, I would not watch the matches so much because I can't stand sometimes that flat up WWE style where it's just kind of very simple, like the 5 moves of doom, right? We were getting a lot of that back then. But again, it's because it worked with the crowds, it worked with everybody else. Like the layman fan that wanted to watch, that was of the 9-10 million people that were watching every week, of the college kids that were watching, the younger audience. They were all into that, and it was all very like easy to just like manage and absorb, and you took it. And again, you switch across both channels. So like I could go ahead and flip over to Raw when I wanted to, or I would just record it, and I'll just flip through what I wanted to watch. And I could flip through Raw and get done in about an hour of a 2-hour show. But with Nitro, it's just like a lot of the mid-cars and like a lot of the cruiserweights. And, I still had a thing growing up watching Hogan and Piper and Savage and watching Hall and Nash getting out there and the NWO stuff. And even when it was becoming a train wreck, I could still watch it. And AEW has been trying to find its way. It is trying to find its identity. I think it hasn't completely gotten there. I think that would have been happening sooner if not for the pandemic. I think they did probably take a few extra months to kind of like, kind of just re-establish themselves because a lot of changes that happened. A lot of stars couldn't make it back, and a lot of things were going on where, it wasn't easy to get people back up over to Jacksonville and get them over there to shows and tape and this and that. So they were struggling with that. But again, even in December, right? Even in December, AEW is trying to get eyeballs on the product. You can see that. And I think what they're seeing too is that, there is a bit of fatigue because in the pandemic, those people that would have been watching streaming, network stuff, right? Watching Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or Disney or whatever, like you might start running out of content to watch because some people probably have watched it all. So to go ahead and pop on the cable, see what there is, catch Dynamite, maybe get a little taste of wrestling again and see what this new product is. I mean, they're probably getting some new eyeballs on this. And again, this is a new crowd. And some people might be a little bit fatigued of just going gamer, and, doing other stuff on YouTube or Twitch or whatever it is. Some people just might get themselves attached to it. I think the other thing too is that you can just see where AEW makes themselves look absolutely different than WWE. But the thing is, they do a great job of utilizing veterans. Again, the veteran announcers you got with Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and Excalibur right there in the mix, to seeing all the managers of Jake Roberts and Tully Blanchard, now seeing Sting in the mix in some kind of a role, or, if he's going to be a little bit in ring, no more than that, please. And then you bring on and you see Dustin Rhodes still working in action, and you still see, Arn Anderson being out there, or Vicky Guerrero managing, or other things. I like it all. And I mean, hell, you've got Brandy Rhodes now in an interesting storyline. Jesus, that took a while. So you did the deal with Shaq. That's good. I like that. And it's just, again, they're just doing some things to kind of just build things up. I like it. It gives everybody something to do. So there's that to work off of. It's good. Like, there's nothing I'm really hating on this show. There's nothing I think that's lacking or where the AEW is doing anything where they're kind of just taking a step down. Like, none of them, I don't ever feel like, I mean, some of their stars, it's obviously they see, okay, we don't want to have certain stars that are just going to bring the show down. And some older stars are just not going to be having the point. But again, there's just so much good talkers. There are so many good talkers on this show. Like, this show, it's not meant to be sports entertainment. It's a pro wrestling show, and it's just an entertaining pro wrestling show. So they are going, here's talking points, cut it. Like, cut the promos. I mean, telling you, MJF cutting a promo for the Orange Cassidy match later in the night, that was amazing. And again, MJF was just stellar tonight. The stuff during the Inner Circle segment was fantastic. I loved it. I think Ortiz was fantastic in that segment too. Sammy Guevara was great in that segment. I think Sammy Guevara, that guy's turning face. At some point, he's turning face. And MJF will do something where, I think Jericho will also get screwed over in some point. I don't know. And then again, you just see these little factions of people. But again, they're all behind good talkers. Almost all of them. I can't say so much for Miro, but again, we got Taz. talking up for, his group. Eddie Kingston talking up for Butcher and Blade. It's just great. It's just great. Pac is I'm surprised he wasn't on tonight. But again, there's just a lot that are doing where it's just, there's a bit of a mix to it. And again, the continuity is pretty much there. And again, and remember, you got different stars that did not be on the show tonight that could absolutely be on. And they do not do much overexposure of stars. I think they do a really good job of that. And I think it works. I mean, of course, they make the point where Omega talks about Moxley, but we don't see Moxley every week. And, to see the champion come out, we don't have to be wrestling, but you see him in different ways, different things. Yeah, that's good. It's a well played out scenario. They're figuring things out. So what they've done now in AEW, have that major heel champion. You have Darby Allin now definitely putting out some things where, his role as TNT champion. Now, it's interesting that he hasn't defended the TNT title as much. But again, that was a Cody thing where he was going to defend it every week. But Darby Allin hasn't been so much. They're definitely, they keep you wondering, hey, what's going on with, Matt Hardy's not around. And, we don't see Private Party this week. And we don't see, there's that kind of feel there where, and, we haven't seen Britt Baker in a while. We haven't seen, want to see Hikaru Shida for a little bit with the Abaddon character, right? They're just, you don't see everybody out there all the time. It's just like, it's all intertwined. And they really have enough stars and enough talent that they can go and just bring people back into the mix and kind of just make every show fresh. Like you're not seeing the same formulaic thing over and over. We're not going to go watch, Raw, where the last couple of weeks Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt started things off. We're not going to end with Drew McIntyre and his deal. Like we're not going to get all that. Like we're getting some formulaic changes. We're not going to see Lana, pairing with Asuka and going back out again. It's like, it is very formulaic. There is a routine, a protocol, a system in play where WWE is just stuck in a rut and they just can't get out of it. And that's what their biggest problem is. And I think they're so afraid of breaking the norms. They can't just break the format and tinker with it. It's not like they need Crash TV all over again with Vince Russo. We don't need that. And, WCW had the same problem too. Like you would have NWO at the end. And you would have the certain format of how the shows go. But AEW is not like that. Again, AEW has shown more than anything else. They're trying to do what the other wrestling promotions, what the other ones didn't do. They don't want to be what WWE is. They don't want to be what WCW was. Right? They're not trying to be what ECW was either. They are on their own path. They are identifying themselves. But they're synonymous with great talkers, great wrestling. They don't have a lot of crappy wrestlers out there working. They've kind of went through and filtered everybody out. And if there are any rough edges, they're on a dark. And they're getting their chance. And we'll see what the YouTube audience kind of tells them about what stars should be noticed and this and that. But they are capable of taking some indie darlings and making them more significant. Because they've definitely made a bigger presence out of MJF, Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy. These are young stars they are definitely sitting behind. And then with some of the other big heavyweight types and some of these other stars that have had a bit of runs in other organizations, but really couldn't make the full run, well, they're putting them together with some other people. Again, I think Taz, putting together some people along in his mix. Ricky Starks has had some, I've only seen him in NWA, and I know he's been in other organizations, but I never saw much of him. But I like him. And Brian Cage, he had a decent run in Impact Wrestling. He had a good run in Lucha Underground. I like them both there. But there's something to be said about, attaching him here where he doesn't have to be the Terminator thing didn't have to be his thing, right? But again, now he's just he's kept credible. and Taz stepping away from the announcer goofy kind of stuff, being the badass original Taz from ECW. Like, Red Hook, Brooklyn Taz, like the Taz mission, the orange shirt, the orange towel over his head. That Taz, that's what we're getting right now. At least of the talking. We can't wrestle like it anymore, but the talking is there, and it's fantastic. He is on his game. It's just so good. Jake Roberts feels good. I just think that, it's, again, they make a point of making all the mid-carders mean something. All their matches are meaningful. And now they're just trying to do some things to get more eyeballs on the show and to continue to build up. And again, one thing I could tell you is that they have not pulled the lever on the second show yet. Remember, we're still, when we had heard about the new deal about AEW coming on board and was going to get started with more programming as part of their new extended contract. Well, that new show has not started yet. And I guess it doesn't start until next year if they're going to do that. We haven't even heard anything about it. But I'll tell you, they have more than enough talent to put on 2 shows. I don't think they need to. And if they do, an hour-long show. We don't need anything more than that. So they're kicking on all cylinders right now. But they're going to get more eyeballs with Shaq coming in, the mainstream crossover. Getting sports fans watching what's going on. The meme, you're going to see Brandy Rhodes throwing water in Shaq's face. People are going to pay attention to that. They're going to see that. Because, oh. Then, Sting coming back. You're getting the diehards coming back. I have not seen anything with AEW that got more people with their eyes just like, whoa. People started saying, hold on a minute. Whoa. Sting is on? That, again, Sting still has the aura of getting people to talk. It didn't matter if it was in TNA. It didn't matter if it was in WWE. But again, it's just, for whatever reason, it's just like an Undertaker kind of feels like it. It's just Sting offers something there. And again, it's somebody we have seen, again, over 4 decades. This is crazy. And by the way, Tony Schiavone talking about, hey, I'd been on TNA for like 1 show 18 years ago and I never stayed on again. That was good stuff. It's amazing where this business goes and where you never know what's going to happen. And you never say never, right? I didn't know that Sting was out of the contract. I didn't know that Sting would actually be able to go and come back and do any wrestling at all after he got hurt. But again, that's what stunted everything else there. It's fascinating. They're just doing all the right things. They're doing all the right things. I'm really liking where they're going with it. And as for NXT, you have to move that show off. And WWE has to really understand that they can't stop AEW wrestling. I think I said this the other night when I talked about, Dan Patrick in SportsCenter days. He would say, you can't control them. You can only hope to contain them. And that's what they were trying to do with NXT. Well, NXT right now is being sacrificed at the altar of AEW. It's time to take the experiment off and move it over. I don't know what you do. I mean, I think what you should do is NXT should move over to Tuesday nights and scale that sucker down to 1 hour. Get that off to 2 hours. But then what you do is, you have the other hour, whether it's Ms. and Mrs. or you put something else there. I don't know what you do, but I think the other problem is that NXT being put 2 hours on a different night. We're already getting 2 hours of other shows, right? Again, we're back at a full schedule of programming. I mean, even NWA right now has come back. They got their Shockwave show right now, where they're just repositioning the Wrestling Live. What are the events they have on Fight TV or whatever they're doing? So you got that show, at least giving something where NWA stars are back in the mix. That's good. I like that. We at least got that. It's not NWA Power. It's just more of a traditional, conventional show, but at least it's some of the stars we like, right? Seeing Eli Drake and Thunder Rosa, and yeah, great. Mike Bennett being brought in the mix. By the way, Mike Bennett back in Ring of Honor. I never thought that would happen, but that's good for them. And Ring of Honor needs a lot of help. But I'm going to catch up on them. We'll get to talk about them next week. I'll take some time to go and look at that leading up to Final Battle. And we'll go and look what the card looks like. But I'll bring that up next week. But again, this is where you have to realize in the whole aura of wrestling. And then, AEW offering the olive branch. And again, another relationship with Impact Wrestling. I mean, I'll tell you what's going to happen as well. And they've already kind of had some relationships with other organizations. I think, there's a lot of things they could do where if they needed to, they're doing so well. I wouldn't be surprised if very soon AEW will have established themselves so well that they will reestablish a relationship or reestablish a relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I can also see, because I don't know, Ring of Honor, they haven't had that. And Ring of Honor, without that relationship, have hurt badly. They've been treading water ever since. And again, without the stars they had before, once the New Japan deal kind of, that exchange kind of just went by the wayside, things went bad. And again, I think with New Japan, it was a matter of what stars were they getting to work with. And that's what was going on. So now, here we are. And this is a tough spot for them. And then also with AAA, you could see where Ring of Honor, or the AEW could work with AAA. I think there's some relationships that could be had, especially when things can go back on the road again. Because that's really when AEW will need the help on the road, is when they can get the relationships with the other organizations and work together on stuff. I think that'll be helpful for all. But at the moment, one of the things I think also feels much is that in the TV environment, there's a couple of things I always think about when before the pandemic came across. There was something about how we liked the way of the look of the temple. And when the look of Lucha Underground first came out. And again, I didn't stay on it last couple of seasons. I was there first 2 seasons. I was die hard on it. And I praised that show on this program for a number of years. Lucha Underground was fantastic. But it did take off to another direction. But there was so many stars that came out of that are working very well right now in other organizations. You see the Hybrid tonight. I saw Willie Mack the other night on Impact, and Brian Cage working over here on AEW. Like there's a lot of stars that came out of that are working their way through, and Ricochet over in WWE, right? So there's a lot. And Swerve also working over, who's originally Killshot in Lucha Underground. But there was something about how they had that crowd and how they had that setup where WWE is kind of sort of doing that with NXT with the Capitol Wrestling Center. And that is kind of where they should go with the program now, with Raw and SmackDown and the roster going out right now. But again, with where things are going with AEW, it does kind of have that Lucha Underground type of energy. But they just have an energy right now that Raw and SmackDown do not have. But SmackDown is getting some momentum because of what they basically did is put the best stuff possible on SmackDown, put it on SmackDown. Like, that's just what you got to do. When they did the draft a couple months ago, that's exactly what they did. Put the best people possible. Now, they are going to try to pull some things off to get some interest, right? You already see where Roman Reigns and Goldberg are starting to start going tete-a-tete right now online. They could pull that match right now, and I think that would be pretty good. But I think right now, WWE's hit goal with Roman Reigns and attaching him with anybody else right now. Roman Reigns is on a different level. And one thing I also saw too, which I'll tell you is kind of interesting. Did he read that Brock Lesnar, I don't think is under contract, and he could go into a bidding war with AEW and WWE. Damn. If Brock Lesnar did go to AEW, I mean, wow. I don't think you could put him out there on a regular basis, but I just think that, that's an interesting dynamic. He would totally pull some audience into AEW just for that. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that they are trying to go ahead and pull some other areas to build up. But again, working with other wrestling organizations, bringing some mainstream crossover, something that will get into the headlines of ESPN or Fox Sports or other things, seeing, oh, Shaq was on AEW. He got water thrown in the face by the chief branding officer of AEW, this and that, right? Or Sting coming back, and all the wrestling pundits and all the internet wrestling community buzzing like crazy when Sting comes back. Now, one of the things I did too, I don't know, just a different perspective on things. What's also changed for me is the way I look at wrestling as well, because because of the pandemic, also what that did too, and I was doing that tonight, as a matter of fact, I was filtering out my Twitter feed. I might have unfollowed about 1,500 followers, 1,500 people that I was following, off my Twitter, just changing it up. And I saw so many different podcasts that I had followed, and I was just, when I was really on doing the podcasting game, I was really attached to, and I just pulled myself back. And I just saw so many I was following. I was like, they didn't follow me back. I'm like, it's okay. And I just think some shows have come and gone too. And there are no wrestling podcasts I listen to now. Not at all. Because I used to hear things where, what were the people saying from other shows and this and that. But again, everybody's doing commentary. Like, nobody really has any connection with any of the stars right now. Not while the show's not on the road. For any of them. It's just been different. But I've changed all that. I just got myself out of the whole mix of listening to what everybody else was saying. And that's also changed with this program too. But then again, it hasn't really changed. I liked it hearing different perspectives, but I just kind of got all of that out of there. And then again, I haven't listened to a whole lot of podcasts as much anyway. Just kind of change up. A lot more music right now. I'm listening to much. Supposed to talk, but I mean, it's still, read certain things. Like I've been reading about WCW right now. Like I still keep myself, engaged in Twitter and looking at other things in terms of wrestling and reading the news that goes on, that comes up, that I can go as a post up on Facebook and Twitter. But other than that, it was nice just to kind of clear that up, because I think kind of looking at wrestling in a different perspective is good, and not listening to everybody else bashing AEW on a regular basis, because I don't think there's a reason to bash them anymore. But then again, remember, as long as you know me on this program, I've always talked about that. When the Monday Night Wars were around, I was a Nitro guy. I was a WCW fan. But I watched, and I was more of an ECW person than I was WWF. I just was. And it wasn't that I didn't love and appreciate everything the Attitude Era was. I thought there was a lot of great stuff on there. I don't go out of my way to go and watch all that stuff. Like, you want to sit me down and watch some Rock promos or Stone Cold promos? Sure. But, I mean, some of that's got some lasting power. But again, I always like a lot of stuff when it comes to what WCW gave. I mean, there was just something about that show and being attached to it for the longest time. I mean, since it started. And I just remember taking time where I was a big fan of the 80s and up to about early 90s. And then things just started changing up, and I saw Hogan going to WCW, and I was kind of, in college, I was kind of just a little bit detached. And then when I got out of college, I got back into wrestling much more than I did before, because, I had time to watch. And then attached around, 94, 95. And then I stayed hardcore into it till 2001. And then I stepped away, because when WCW closed, I was like, they're going to do this invasion angle. I'm going to hate it. And they did. I never went back to watch it. I just don't feel like subjecting myself to it. I don't want to do it. And like I said, once WCW went away, I was always looking for myself, where's that next organization going to come from? And as you know, since the beginning of this program, I didn't think TNA would be it. But TNA gave it a shot. But again, they were using the same people as before. When you put Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash, Booker T being brought in that mix, not in a bad thing, but he was. Kurt Angle, you could just tell, okay, Hogan and Creative Control and Dixie Carter just losing control of the whole situation. Same thing. So that was destined to go ahead and fall. But looking at what WCW did, looking at what TNA did, what was good in WCW on Nitro, what was good of TNA, there's a little bit of that being taken into the AEW product, a little bit. But it is good. I mean, I don't think they bring on stars. There is nobody that I think, oh, this person's trash on AEW. I don't think there's not one person that they brought up on the main show on Dynamite that I feel like is pure trash. There's not. Like, I have an attachment, and I feel like, okay, I'll watch the match. No problem on a lot of people they have on there. Do they have a couple of matches that don't do so well technically? Yeah. Sometimes it's the women's matches. But again, in every division, tag, women's, men's, there are certain stars I really like. And there's a lot of stars I like in AEW. A lot of stars. And that's what they do more than anything else. And, I love to give opportunities. I like that they, I think they've been pretty. One thing that everybody on the bashing side of AEW was, are they going to stick to all these different things they're going to be doing? And, it was just this already crapping on from the get-go. And I never understood that. And I never was that. I'm always open to new competition. Competition is good. But again, AEW has been staying in their own lane. Like, they did take a couple of shots at the company. WWE just a couple of shots across the bow to like recognize, hey, look at us here. To say, hey, we recognize you. But again, AEW, for the most part, they stayed in their own lane. 99% of the time, they've stayed in their own lane. And they're doing a good job of it. And you know what? AEW kind of is in lockstep where I went. I was like, you know what? I'll stay in my own lane. I'm not going to worry about everybody else, what everybody else is doing. What the internet wrestling community is saying, what they're doing, what they're podcasting about as well. Not. And I think just, the other thing too is that when I saw certain podcasters out there and I just sort of see certain people that, paywall. I'm like, I'm not going to do a paywall. So I'm not going to do it with premiums. If I can get the full thing, like that's my shows for free. But yeah, there are ads on the show. And the thing is, the good news is because of the ads, I could actually put towards things. I like the fact that I've been able to use the ad revenue from this show that has gone on through this year to go and buy a new microphone, which I hopefully will have next week as I record this show. I hopefully will have that attached and ready and connected to go and have it for all of you to listen to on next week's program. I love that. I'm looking forward to it. But for the most part, I feel so much optimism for 2021. Everybody's back. I have to just see what Ring of Honor does right now and what they've been doing with themselves to try to get themselves back on track. They've had a lot of issues this year. I mean, they dealt with the Kelly Klein contract issue, dealing with Marty Scurll. I mean, and then again, they were down for a long time too, hurting. MLW is back up. And by the way, they're doing really well now. I don't know much about the Calvin Tankman character going over well, but I mean, let's see what they do with him. But again, like, the last couple of shows I've seen them come off and start back up. Opera Cup's pretty good right now. Richard Holiday, I think, is a great character. Low key going out there, just kicking ass. Amazing. Tom Lawler, I like the character there. Violence is Golden. Contra Unit's great. Selena De La Renta's back. I love all that stuff. They're also getting their own show, Kings of Coliseum. Their pay-per-view is going to be on their normal show. I'll probably go ahead and take some time to talk about that when that comes up. And Jacob Fatu, by the way, if I didn't make mention of, when he took on Davey Boy Smith a few weeks ago for the world title, Jacob Fatu, man, I did. That's right. Well, the Roman Reigns character, when we were talking about Survivor Series, that Jacob Fatu is in amazing shape right now. That guy is like, that's a hell of a guy right now. He's held that title for a long time, by the way, the MLW title. Keep an eye on him and just keep an eye on what wrestling's doing right now. WWE right now, they need to just realize that with Raw and with NXT, there's some definite need for attention on those shows. And, I don't know if they found their lead writer yet, but they've got to find some things out and figure some things out quick. Because Raw, they're kind of like stabilizing the ship again, but again, they're just hurting bad. Now, they're going to get the advantage pretty soon of NFL going away, at the end of the year. So they'll have no more Monday Night Football to worry about. They'll be back to that. And again, they'll have Royal Rumble time and WrestleMania season coming up very soon. But again, they're going to take a little time off. They're going to probably not be so adamant after TLC. It's going to just be a little bit lame duck session for a couple of weeks before Royal Rumble comes around. They're going to probably be doing things like that. But AEW does not slowing down. Keep that in mind. They're doing shows throughout. They're going to have some tape programming. I think it's the 23rd. So they're not going to have, or the 16th, they're going to record some stuff on the 16th, do a live show. 23rd will be tape. It'll be Christmas, weekend or Christmas week going into New Year's. So they'll have some stuff they're going to work off of. And that's good. And this is where AEW is taking advantage right before WrestleMania season to get some real buzz. Because then WrestleMania season is going to probably take some of their run off. And they need to figure out what they can do to really get themselves, in this period, really get some people talking about them. And maybe take some people's attention away from WWE. And again, I want AEW more than anything else to be a strong competitor. This is good to get WWE to get their act together. They have to realize, listen, this is not anymore about NXT being the stopgap. That's over. 2020, you tried to do that for 2 years. It didn't work. Now, World Wrestling Entertainment has to realize AEW is now a competitor. They're in the crosshairs. Are they still in the rearview mirror? Absolutely. But they're gaining ground. And it's not because of total viewers. It's because Dynamite is able to get viewers more than Raw right now. And the targeted, highly coveted 18 to 49 demographic. Ratings don't matter about total viewers. Not like it did back on the Attitude Era. Not back in the 90s and 2000s. Now, 18 to 49 matters in cable and network TV. So they have to keep that in mind. Their social media presence on AEW? No, not there yet. They're working on it. But there's a lot to be said about getting some eyeballs on what's going on here. They're getting attention. That's good. So there is legit competition, whether you like it or not. AEW is making the moves, right alliances. They got all stars. They're getting some things together. They're trying to make some moves to step up to the next level. To be, when they talk about professional wrestling in any circles around, the AEW will now be brought up in the same breath as WWE. That's what they want. And that's what they're working on for 2021. They're going to get there. Mark my words. We're going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in, subscribing as you do. Come back for another Wrestling Goes Real podcast because wrestling needs us.
Subscribe to the Wrestling Goes Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, wrestlingisreal.com.